don't change who you are. You can work around the edges. You can get better at something. You can mitigate something that you're not so good at or isn't a strength, but don't change who you are.
Hello, and welcome to this ICMA Member Spotlight. I'm your host, Jessie Finley, Marketing Manager with ICMA, and today we're talking about mission-driven leadership and some of the unique and valuable programming offered at this year's ICMA Annual Conference. I'm joined today by Tom Joyce, City Manager of Minot, North Dakota. Tom brings a unique leadership journey to local government, serving first as a U.S. Air Force colonel, then in senior federal civilian leadership roles before becoming an assistant city manager and now a city manager. At this year's ICMA Annual Conference, Tom will be part of a session exploring how veterans are helping strengthen trust, integrity, and mission-driven leadership in local government. Today we'll talk about his career journey, what he's learned along the way, and why he's passionate about helping veterans continue serving in their communities. Thanks so much for joining us today, Tom.
Hey, thank you, Jessie.
Tom, you've spent your career serving others, first in the military, then in civilian federal service, and now in local government. What inspired your transition into local government management? Was there a particular moment when you realized that local government was where you wanted to continue serving?
I don't think there was a single moment, but I think you nailed it from the start. It's about public service. So I've been a public servant, like you said. I was proud to serve in our Air Force for 28 years active duty, and then I had an opportunity to become a federal civilian service employee with the Department of the Army. Did that for about 8.5 years. And just sometime a few years ago, I started looking for maybe some other options as I finished out my career back in 2024. Started here with the city of Minot as the assistant city manager, and didn't expect the city manager role to come open, but it did last year, and I threw my name in the hat and had an opportunity, for the first 18 months here to meet a lot of the folks, and both internal to the organization, external leaders in the community, and it's the home of Minot Air Force Base, so good fit.
It definitely sounds like a fantastic fit. And your previous experience definitely gave you a strong foundation for stepping into this type of local government role. And many people don't immediately see the similarities between military leadership and local government leadership. So, what skills translated most naturally for you, and what surprised you after entering municipal management? Has anything about leading local government been more challenging or rewarding than you expected?
So to me, leadership competencies are kind of the same across the board. It doesn't matter if you're in a federal civil service position, the military, municipal. Leadership's leadership. But I am confident in my experience and my abilities to build a team, to work towards a strategic end state. And I think that's kind of what they were looking for. And so it fit for me. You asked a little bit about, what might have surprised me. In my previous roles, you reported to one person. So this is the first time I've reported to a body, right? So we have a 7-member council, and, I report to all 7 of them collectively in total. And while I listen and meet with each of them individually, really the direction of the majority of council is where, we need to be going. Because if you're just jumping on every single fire, and not saying they're not legitimate, but what I make sure I have that kind of open, transparent conversation with the individual council members. I'm not saying it's not important, but you elected me to run the day-to-day operations of your city, like the chief executive officer. So it's important, just like any other citizen's complaint is important, and I owe you a status on it. But it's not necessarily going to come to the top of my list.
Yeah, I think a lot of our audience can relate to that challenge. And what's one misconception about veterans and local government that you hope to challenge? And what unique perspectives do veterans bring that organizations might sometimes overlook?
I would say don't put anybody in a box. One of the beautiful things about the military that most people, if they weren't in the military, don't recognize is that we are promoted based on our potential to excel in the next position. That's what you're promoted on, is your potential to excel. And your potential to excel is that the group of people who selected you for promotion want you to keep being who you are. This is authentic leadership. Don't change who you are. You can work around the edges. You can get better at something. You can mitigate something that you're not so good at or isn't a strength, but don't change who you are, right? So I think that's the misconception is, that they're all a certain way, that members of the military are very rigid, because we use the word discipline. But hey, they're very trainable and they're motivated, and everybody is their own. Be they, whether they're, currently still in or they're a veteran. That's what I think hiring authorities will find with military veterans.
That's great. And, for veterans considering that next step, the transition itself can bring some important lessons. So, looking back on your own transition into local government, what advice would you give another veteran considering a career in public service?
I think first and foremost, do your best to know that you're going to be happy in the role. Get as many informational interviews as you can. For my colleagues out there, especially if you're near a military installation, but really anybody else. If anybody in town is interested, why not spend 5-10 minutes with them? If nothing else, more than likely, because you're good people, they're going to leave with a good impression of their city leadership. And they're going to go, well, that doesn't seem like they have any jobs for me that are perfect for me. But, so I wouldn't necessarily just push them off to HR. Look at your calendar, find some time, take an opportunity to meet somebody else in town that you haven't met. And, this recruiting thing never ends. We learned that in the military, recruiting never ends. So you can be your own recruiter.
As someone who entered the profession from outside of the traditional local government pathway, what role has ICMA played in your professional journey? Are there particular resources, relationships, or experiences that have been especially valuable to you?
Yeah, well, it actually started a few years ago. So I'll start it this way. So I was working for the Army as a deputy garrison commander, and they had a program called their City Manager Senior Fellowship Program that I, applied for and fortunately was selected back in like the 2019, 2020 timeframe. So that started me understanding ICMA and kind of made me think, hey, maybe some point in my time, maybe I will look into that. And sure enough, a few years later, the time was just right. Again, I went to my first ICMA conference 2 years ago in Pittsburgh, learned a lot, met a lot of people. I went to Tampa last year. Out here in our region of the world, we have the Great Open Spaces City Managers Association. So that's North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, and Wyoming. And so we meet annually. And so I've gotten to know many city managers and city administrators and assistants. And you just build your network. You build your who can I call list, who can I email list. And it works both ways, right? And we bounce ideas off of each other. So ICMA has been very, very supportive.
It's really great that you've been able to build your network through ICMA, and those connections can be especially valuable during annual conference. And, this year you'll have the opportunity to create those kind of experiences for someone else. You're presenting a session titled Mission Driven Leadership, Veterans Building Trust and Integrity in Local Government. Tell me, what inspired this conversation and what do you hope attendees will take away and implement in their own organizations? And furthermore, why is this topic especially relevant right now?
I'm just always inspired to again, pay it forward or pay back, however you want to call this thing. But pay it to somebody, right? I've been helped and blessed in my life with so many people that have just put me in the right spot, have challenged me, have coached me. What a veteran brings, first and foremost, they bring selfless service. They're all about the team. When veterans go through transition assistance program to, move away from the military and join the rest of the workforce, they have to be coached into saying I versus we. We did this. We did that. You bring on somebody who's going to, from day one, going to be a great teammate. This is what, what veterans can bring to the team. The other thing is, in most cases that I've found, no matter when they've separated from the service, 4 years, 6 years, 10 years, they did a full career, 20-year plus, they've had the opportunity and they excelled in working in integrated teams. Very diverse functional teams working together to get the job done. So yes, they may be an HR person, but they work hand in hand with finance or the manpower folks or whoever they were supporting, right? Whatever they were supporting. And that's just like us. I mean, you could be supporting military police battalion. Well, guess what? We have a police force, right? We have a police department. So they're very good at working collectively with others, and kind of seeing the big vision, and not getting stuck in their stovepipe. So that's something that I'll hope can facilitate a conversation with those who attend the session, and just help answer their questions and help coach them through that. And understand too that if it's a first-time military veteran, that their resume was good enough and we got an interview with you, understand that this is new to them. There's this thing in the military called orders. You don't necessarily get to interview for the job you're going to. You're told this is where you're going. So, just to recognize that and talk to your HR team to realize how do you make sure you really get them into a good discussion and they really can explain themselves or their thoughts versus just going, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, right? It's like, no, we really want you to talk and explain yourself here. So sometimes it's about coaching them up as well.
That's great. And it sounds like a very important discussion that anyone at conference can benefit from. You mentioned this before, but looking back on the ICMA annual conferences you've attended, is there one conversation, session, or connection that changed the way you think about your work?
So for all the great sessions I've attended, and some literally are standing room only, so you got to have a plan of attack. That's for darn sure. So I'm standing in the free headshot line in Pittsburgh, and I'm talking to an executive that's been with her team in California for quite a while. And one tactical advice that actually is impactful at operational and can be impactful at the strategic level that she gave me that I've implemented since being the city manager, and I just held one this morning, is a weekly Monday morning stand up with my police chief and my fire chief. So I call it, the public safety leaders meeting. And so, I'm hearing about what might have gone over the weekend that I missed, right? That just didn't make a report, and we can digest and what do we need to do this week. And then we're talking about what we are doing this week and anything. And we usually reach out more past this week. But that was, again, that's just meeting somebody, standing in line, waiting for your picture to be taken. You don't got to stand there, be staring at your phone and be mute. Like, meet other people while you're out there. And that was just a great piece of advice, and I use it to this day.
I love that, because some of the most valuable conference takeaways definitely happen when you least expect them. And that's the perfect description of that. And Tom, thank you so much for sharing your leadership journey and your perspective on what mission-driven leadership looks like in local government today. Your story is a great reminder that public service can take many paths, but the commitment to serving communities remains the same. Thanks again for taking the time to speak with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jesse. I hope to see you in Long Beach.
And to our viewers, thank you for joining us for this ICMA Member Spotlight. If you're attending the 2026 ICMA Annual Conference, be sure to add mission-driven leadership, veterans building, trust, and integrity in local government to your conference schedule. Whether you're a veteran, work with veterans, or simply want to strengthen leadership, trust, and organizational culture in your community, this session offers practical insights that you can put into action right away. And if you haven't registered yet, there's still time to join thousands of local government professionals in Long Beach this October for inspiring keynote speakers, peer learning, and conversations that can shape your leadership long after the conference ends. We hope to see you there, and until next time, thank you for all you do in service to our communities.